What's up? Welcome back to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv, and today we're going to be reacting to, based on all of your recommendations, Garrett Watts' video, Overnight in a Haunted Victorian Mansion, which I guess is actually called the Perkins House. So if you guys are new to the channel and you don't know anything about me, my name's Liv. I'm a psychic medium. My best friend and business partner, Em, who's in every other almost video that we've posted, is taking a break from recording content, but she's here in spirit. So as psychic mediums, we're able to remote view, which if you've never heard before, remote viewing is just channeling the energy of a place without actually being there, because as psychic mediums, that's all we're doing. Funny story, when Em and I actually first started PsycKicks and we were offering readings, I was offering readings professionally, which I'd never done before, only just like little pop-up things here and there as a medium. I didn't think that I could do readings without being in front of the person that I needed to talk to. Same thing with like haunted locations. I thought someone had, like, you have to physically be there in order to channel souls or spirits, or physically be with the person that you're giving a reading in order to channel their souls or spirits, or the ones around them. So just to give another little bit of like a background on how remote viewing works, I want to talk about that a little bit today, because we mentioned it in one of our Conjuring House videos when we went there, and I was explaining how we're able to channel souls to Corey, who was one of our tour guides. But for anyone that hasn't watched that video or doesn't want to, let's explain how remote viewing can work. So as a medium, like I've said, the only thing that Em and I do is channel the energy of souls or physical things, because I talk to animals and plants as well, so just channeling that energy. But so the way it works and the way I've been able to rationalize how remote viewing works or channeling souls and spirits is when we are communicating with souls or spirits, the only thing we're doing is channeling or like intercepting and understanding the spiritual information in the form of energy that souls are giving to us. So when we are alive, we have the energy of our physical body, but I also believe that we have the energy of our soul. So one is physical energy, one is non-physical energy, or at least as far as science understands it currently, it is non-tangible energy. But energy exists in many different ways, whether we can see it or we can't. So when our body dies, we follow the law of thermodynamics. The third law specifically states that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is simply converted from one form to the next. So if our body follows those scientific rules, our soul has to as well, which it would at least explain the existence of souls themselves in some sort of ether, realm, spirit, heaven, source, whatever you want to call it. So when our body dies, our soul still has to go somewhere. So that's where it would go. You have the states of matter, the particles at which those frequencies vibrate or reside is going to dictate their state. So you have solid, liquid, gas, plasma. Soul's energy must vibrate at some super high frequency, hence why all of the spiritual people in the metaphysical world are like, I want to raise my vibration. It's because that's where souls reside. Similar to gases, the particles at which gases exist are super high frequency, which is why we can't see them. So my hypothesis is that souls must exist at some higher frequency than that of like gases, since we can't physically see them all the time unless they choose to manifest in like one of Garrett Watts' videos or other paranormal investigators, things like that. But yeah, that is how remote viewing is able to happen, because just like how you don't have to be in the same room as me right now, that energy is being channeled through some sort of media or medium, i.e. the internet waves and the stuff that makes camera videos record, into communication. So the only thing I'm doing is similarly to like what your car radio does. So same thing, if you're driving in your car, you don't need to be in the same room as the disc jockey or the DJ and the radio station to listen to the radio or the songs that they're playing, because they're taking that energy, converting it into radio waves or frequencies that you can't see. They travel through the air and they're uptaken through a media or medium, which would be your car radio, and then converted into energy or into communication. So that is what I'm doing. I am picking up or channeling the frequencies of the spiritual energy of this place and the souls and entities and energies surrounding it and communicating it into this video. So I hope that explains how remote viewing works, how it's possible, and how mediums, we don't have to travel physically to a place in order to channel the souls or like respond or react to the stuff that's going on in the video. I guess someone in the comment section said, "Oh my god, Liv, you have to react to this video," because he wants, I guess, Garrett, hi, if you're watching this, want a reaction to a medium or a medium to comment on this. So I'm a girl, I'm gonna try my best. We'll see how it goes. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I've never watched a Garrett Watts video ever in my whole life. And I'm not going to play the intro of the video because that's Garrett's and his fabulous editing team.
What is happening right
now? So, I've discovered something wild. You ready for this?
But if you want to go watch his like 3 to 10-ish minute intro,
maybe this place is haunted.
Go do that because it's very funny. I like the silly vibes that he exudes because it's very fun.
God, tortillas are so good.
And I also try to do that too. You know, like when you're dealing with stuff that could be like spooky or paranormal, it's always fun to have that like just laugh until you're not scared anymore vibe. But anyways, just based off the way that they drive up to the house, I can immediately tell you that there is like an older woman who steps forward. And she says that the house used to be a place for a family. Obviously, it's a Victorian house, so without even being a medium, I can tell you that it was built in like the 1880s. I want to say, I'm asking her, sorry. They tell me like the summer of 1885, 1886-ish is when it was built. So we'll have to see if we can fact check that later. But there's an older woman who steps forward and she tells me that the house was home to a lot of people, many generations. People would even come to like stay with the family during like holidays and things like that because of the location of this place. Oh yeah, it's in Colfax, Washington, which sounds pretty cool. I want to go to Washington. I've never been there. But this woman is excited to talk about this because she said she was alive during the spiritualist movement and she was one of the proponents of the spiritualist movement. And if you don't know what the spiritualist movement is, it was basically, I'll tag a video that we did up here like a really long time ago when we first started PsycKicks, where we talk about Helena Blavatsky, who was one of like the founding women of the spiritualist movement in America. But this woman, I don't know who she is. She's related to the house. She's older. She's probably like in her 40s-ish, mid 40s. She has dark hair. She's more of like a medium build. And she's like, I love the spiritualist movement. It was great. And I feel like at some points in time, she might have even had people come into the house. I feel like they were brothers or two men that would come in and lead seances in the house. But the spiritualist movement in America in the 1880s was like this big, I don't know, I guess you can't really say new age, but maybe new age movement where everyone brought solace or was brought solace by the idea of that you could communicate with your loved ones that had passed on, which is interesting because back then we didn't have the same modern medicine, so the mortality rate of people given wars and sickness was super, super high. So instead of like on Sunday you'd go to church, after you'd come home from church you'd have lunch and you would have like a Sunday seance with your Ouija board. That was like the culture of the spiritualist movement back then. But she says that she was a big proponent of the spiritualist movement, and she and quote her sister or someone else that lived in the house would bring these two guys in to do seances with the family because she thought it was really, really fun. I should also say that the owners of this house, based on how they're dressed, were very high society or like upper in the social scale. I feel like the man who owned it was a businessman for sure. And he's very like staunch, I would say. He has like, I feel like his hair was straight, not curly. But he's older, he's in his like late 50s, 60s. And he has like a mustache that's straight. It's like, I feel like his hair was blonde or dirty blonde, because at the ends it's like yellowish kind of, but it's like white here. And then his hair is coming off on the top, so like he's balding on the top a little bit, but his hair goes down and then out, like he wore a hat sometimes, or like his wife would make him comb his hair and then it would dry like that. But it's really funny. And he's very reserved and well-to-do. He takes a lot of pride and responsibility in the things that he does. But let's move on to a little bit more of a like thing of the house, I guess, like a video of it, and we'll see what else we can get.
Zooming on the swing set. Isn't moving on its own?
Actually, yeah. Wait, is that moving?
Ugh, this is definitely a Victorian house. Ugh, I'm excited to do this video too because I've done a couple videos in the past just where I did like urban explorer videos. I think I've done like 2, maybe 2.5, something like that. And I just love old houses. Like, look at this house. It's beautiful. I love it. You could definitely tell it's a Victorian house too, because like in the thumbnail it's like Victorian house. Doesn't tell you like what house it is until you start watching it, which is great. But I love it because if you look at the front, just look at it. You see the railings on the top of the house. We went to a house in Cleveland, Ohio. I forget what it's called. I'll try to look it up, maybe put it in the description. But we went to a haunted house in Cleveland that was also a Victorian house. And the guy who owned it was telling us a lot about like the architecture of it, which I love, by the way. But you can tell because the little railings on the top of the house, those windows, I bet you 9 times out of 10, what they were originally built for, based on what I've learned from our Cleveland house paranormal investigation too, was that the Victorian era, they had like super really cool things. Like they had pocket doors over like big old archways, usually in houses, so that you could close off one section of the house and make like one section look like it disappeared, and then the rest of the house you could focus on. So it was like a flow of movement, but also like if you had servants or if you were entertaining, you could keep people to one side of the house and everything else sort of just melted in the background, because the way that they structured it, it made it look like it was like effortless and easy. So I'm sure that this house maybe has like pocket doors like that, maybe. But back to the stair railings, like ADHD old house tangent. Those windows, I'm sure, opened. You walked out onto where the little railings were on the roof, and then you could walk in through the other window and into the house. And that was like a purposeful thing that the Victorian era people did to make it easy to go from one side of the house to the other, but like without having to walk through the house. So again, if you had like one section closed off because you were entertaining and had people around, you, as the person that lived in the house, could walk outside and then enter to another part of the house that was already closed off. So like it never really seemed like you were moving because no one saw you actually moving. And I love it. The next thing that I love is, and it might look creepy because I thought maybe the windows were boarded up too, but when Garrett's friend zoomed in, you could see that the old wooden shutters that go in front of the windows, instead of curtains, they would have shutters. And sometimes they would go into the wall or fold down into like, the shutters themselves would fold down into the wall, and then a little tiny like edge piece would fold over. So it looked like the wooden shutters were never there. But I just love the fact that it has the wooden shutters, because that 100% just speaks to the authenticity and like the architecture of this house as a Victorian house. And it just, it gets me going. I'm gonna try and add as many like shots from his video in there as possible, because I love it. It's fabulous.
Just gonna get a little closer. And if they pull a gun on me, it'll be cool for the camera.
Yeah. You're not gonna go up there. Dude!
Andrew, it's the same thing that a mailman would do. They'll just think I'm a mailman. Look at me.
You look nothing like a mailman. Oh my god.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's looking.
You really shouldn't do that.
It's like a felony, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, in this part, it's so funny. I feel the same way when I get to like old houses. I'm like, ooh, gotta look at it, gotta see it, gotta touch it, gotta feel it, gotta go in. Like, who's gonna open this door to maybe let me go in? But I just want to point out that first of all, Garrett just running around the house like a little schoolgirl, like tee hee hee. That has to make some hilarious ring footage, like ring camera footage, because I'm sure the house, like many old Victorian things, have like cameras around, and I just wish that I could see that without like any sound, because it would be hilarious. But anyways, as they're going around this house, I was trying to channel any more souls that would want to step forward and talk about the house that they grew up in or lived in for a period of time. And there is a woman who stepped forward, because I felt like someone had their hand on my shoulder as they were like running around the house. And she's younger than the first woman who was talking about how she used to hold seances at the house with like the two medium brothers or something. This woman's younger. She has dark hair too, but it's pulled up and it's straight. She has more of like a thinner build, and she's younger, like maybe in her 20s, like 23 to 27-ish. And she's talking about, I feel like she was the lady of the house at one point. Later down the lines, I wrote down, I think it was like the 1900s to 1910s, 1915-ish. She is talking about something with like doing charity events. She's not upset, but she's just talking about how since the family's been gone, or like the original people that lived there, the original family, she says we lived there for like a couple generations, but since it's no longer being owned by the family in the same way and run, she says that the charity events that they used to hold for the town are no longer being done. And it's something that bothers her. I feel like she may have worked with like a hospital or an orphanage. I want to specifically say an orphanage, because she shows me like children in a building, and she makes me feel clairsentiently or with my emotions that she did a lot of charity work for the children or for orphans of the city. But those events aren't being held anymore, and it like makes her upset. I also feel like the man who I saw a little bit ago too, who I feel like was like the man of the house with the straight hair and like the staunch face, he steps forward, and I feel like he might have worked in like a train business or like hauling things, so logistics maybe. So taking like materials and pushing them out somewhere else with the train system, or like the railway system. And they also show me that there was like a carriage house maybe knocked down, because I'm seeing the house from the front, but off to one of the sides I feel like there was a house for like horses, or for someone to keep carriages or something like that, or there's another building that was off site and it's knocked down, or it's not there anymore, but they're showing the house itself is showing me that. I feel like there also might have been a fence around the front of the house or around one part of the property too. And I feel like there's a lot of residual things that happen in this house too. Like, sorry, I'm trying to channel the house instead of the souls that are around. So the house tells me that there's a lot of residual energy, not as much active. So let's talk about the difference between an active haunting and a residual haunting. Okay, so the difference between an active haunting and a residual haunting, if you like want to become a paranormal investigator, this is probably something like super, super cool to understand before you go into a place, or at least to understand, before you go into a place, because it'll help you differentiate between what kind of activity you're getting with your EMF reader, REM pod, flashlights, whatever, or like what you're experiencing too. So given the fact that when you're at a place, you're interacting with soul's energy or the house's energy, an active haunting is going to be when, how do I say this? Let me backtrack a little bit. When we pass and we're no longer in our physical bodies, we're in heaven or spirit, or we're just the energetic entity of our soul, you are no longer bound by physicality. So you can traverse the physical realm. So putting yourself, having an entity haunt a location is sort of like them using the same analogy from the portion of this video where we explain how souls exist vibrationally or like as energy. They sort of have to lower their energy a little bit, or at least like take their high vibrationalness and somehow bring it down to exist in our realm of existence, because we exist vibrationally lower because we're solids. You know what I'm saying? Like solid, liquid, gas. They have to somehow go down in order to exist on this plane, but they can because they're no longer bound by physicality. So if you are getting activity that's physical or an active haunting, that is when a soul or a spirit or a spiritual entity is interacting with you in this plane, like actively poking fun at you, actively making you hear things. Like for example, when I go to the Conjuring house, I'm a mental medium, so I don't usually experience things physically. But at the Conjuring house, because there's so much energy there with like the ley lines and just the history of the place itself, I experience physical clairaudience, which is like someone whispering in my ear, like someone whispered Andrew's ear in the St. Ignatius video that they reference in here.
Bathroom.
What was that noise?
That's physical clairaudience. That would be an active haunting. That is a spiritual being or soul actively interacting with you. However, there's also residual hauntings that can happen. Now, when we think of residual hauntings I like to compare to like a photograph or kind of like the newspapers from Harry Potter. So if we're talking about energy, a soul or a spirit being energy can leave an imprint on something. Similarly to how when you have the flash of a camera leaves the imprint on the photo paper, that is what a soul's energy, both physically and spiritually, can leave on a physical place. So if you're investigating, say, a Victorian mansion like Garrett Watts is in this video with his friend Andrew, then you can also have a lot of residual hauntings as well, because that place has been around since 1886, I think is what the woman said. And we'll fact check this later, hopefully. Or you guys can let me know in the comments down below if that's right. We'll see. That energy can imprint itself into a location or a space. So if it's from 1886 to a certain point and many families lived there, then that's going to mean that a lot of energy has existed in this house, not only helping the house to create a sort of consciousness or awareness of itself because of that energetic imprint, but also residual hauntings, which can be like every single night, say you hear footsteps going from one side of the house to the other. That can be an energetic imprint of if someone lived in that house and every single night would go like downstairs to make a cup of tea or go upstairs to stoke a fire, whatever it is, that can be a residual haunting because that person had done that so many times in life that after they're gone, the house is going to remember that energy, very much like one of the newspapers from Harry Potter or a photograph where it's just going to replay. And that is something that is not necessarily haunting you, but it's just playing over and over on a loop, like a reel or an old movie where it just keeps going and going and going. So, based on what this house is telling me, I feel like there is a lot of residual hauntings. I feel like there's some active hauntings too, where the souls just like to reside there in a space and time that is consistent with when they existed, but it overlays with our physical existence that's happening now. But you hear a lot of things because the house is saying that there's someone that is something that goes like bump in the night. And there's just a lot, like the shutters may make noises too from when people were opening and closing them. You might hear a lot of like footsteps. Oh, there's a lot of conversations in this house. Sorry, there's a woman that just stepped forward and she said, people hear us talking. That's really weird. I just had a woman like come straight up in front of me and she goes, a lot of people hear the conversations we have. I'm like, that's odd. She says during their time, something about a newspaper. She says, we used to like to talk about the newspaper all the time because we had a hand in it almost. So maybe they ran the newspaper, or they just would talk about the things that were going on in the newspaper, like girl gossip. But there's also a man, like she's saying that she used to talk to a man about the things in the newspaper as well to keep him up to date on things. But I feel like there's a lot of conversations that people hear, and that's both residual and active. She goes like this. Sorry, that's my sign for yes. So I feel like there's active hauntings of people talking about them too. Because it's like the news. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's keep going.
Andrew! We missed a call from Val. Let's call her back in the car. Okay. Hello, Val. Sorry, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm outside of something right now. What is it called, Andrew? Like the Perkins Historical Museum. Please tell me this is the same house you were telling me about.
Yeah, that's the one. I can get you the key, and I can get you in there whenever you want. I got the key with me, so...
Okay, thank you. That is very cool. We'll come pick up the key right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so they're gonna meet with Val, the keeper of the keys. That's so funny.
Val, you know what I just remembered? There was a house, like that you said, was as scary as St. Ignatius somewhere in Colfax.
Yeah.
What? Wait, maybe we need to talk about that later, but...
Yeah, it's the Victorian house, and I actually, I have the key to that house, too.
Well, I think it's interesting that they say, and this is just my own, like, romanticized thought about it, but Em and I have learned that when we go to haunted locations, there is usually at least one soul or spiritual being that will step forward and sort of help us navigate the house in a safe way. Because of a house's reputation, there can be negative or lower vibrational entities that can be associated to the house, because people's energy, that fear of something, can attract those negative poltergeisty things. Some people are like, the demons are in the house, stuff like that. So there's usually one soul or spiritual entity that helps us navigate a paranormal location in order to keep us safe, or sort of hinder or blindfold, energetically speaking, the things that we don't want to talk to, or like the more negative things that have been associated to the house. And we call those people the keepers of the house. They're like the tour guide-ish, I guess, spiritually speaking. And they usually help us get to the meat and potatoes of the house itself and its, like, history and hauntings, if you will. And I just think it's funny that Garrett is like, she's a ghost.
I don't know, Andrew. I think Val's a ghost. I can't answer every question. She's very mysterious.
Because maybe, in all honesty, the universe is just being a little funny, because it usually is. The universe is satirical and thinks that they're hilarious, or thinks it's hilarious, it seems, at least. And maybe Val is a sort of physical / spiritual keeper of these places, if you will, because there's always a soul. I've never had someone physically be a keeper before, but I'm just trying to, like, make it funny, I guess. I don't think she's necessarily like the spiritual keeper of the house, but there are spiritual keepers of the house, and if Garrett's watching this, maybe she is a ghost. Anyways, okay, let's see what Val has to say about the history of the Perkins house, and then yeah, maybe we'll get into the hauntings. I just want to see if I'm right based off of, like, the ghosts that have been that have been talking to me about it thus far.
Oh, jeez! Sorry, I didn't know you were there. Sorry, Val.
How's it going?
That was it's my bad. We just didn't see you is all. I have so many questions. What is this house? Because I remember you saying it was a terrifying place. So it's this, I assume, this very haunted house called the Perkins house, which is a historical, that's why it says museum on the outside.
Yeah.
Because it's a historical proproperty as well. But it's more of a house than a museum?
It's not like a normal museum where you can't touch anything.
Okay.
Built in 1886. And it was the first house built in Whitman County, and it's still standing. Mr. Perkins built it, and then he kind of built Colfax. The Historical Society got in about the 1970s and then renovated it. It probably should have been torn down. It was in a really, really bad condition, but they saved it.
I've seen nothing of the inside of it, so it just vibes like an old house when you go in.
Yeah.
What is it about this house that makes it so scary? Is it an ominous feeling? Is it other people's stories? Have you had any experiences there? What is it?
I would say, I mean, you think this place is scary. That place is terrifying.
Why? What's happening there?
I have heard a man and a woman talking.
Ooh, clairaudient things, guys. Clairaudient, like that you hear, like in the people talking. Are you absolutely spooping me? I can't. Ugh. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's move on.
The one night I was there working late and I was putting up the Christmas tree, and it sounded like something hit the building, like a car. So I can hear things or furniture being moved, but mostly I hear talking. I'll hear a woman talking upstairs.
Oh my gosh, because this family lived there for generations.
Yeah.
That's so sweet,
Since
the idea
the
of...
1800s until 1970.
And it's been kept the same.
Yeah.
And so they could just be in there, like, living their lives still.
Yeah.
Who's haunting the house? Is this like a known theory? Or?
Yeah,
I do think it's probably maybe Perkins' family. I don't know, but you can find out tonight.
Oh my goodness, I think we might. Val, thank you so much. And you said there's a key you're going to trust me with?
Okay. There it is.
Oh! Anything else? We good?
When you're in there, lock yourself in with that key.
Okay, so lock myself in the house that you say is scarier than St. Ignatius Hospital. Thank you so much.
What?
Why?
Yeah, why do we have to lock ourselves in, Val?
Because then nobody will come in. Like, you'll be locked in there. Safety.
Gosh, this video is getting so long. You have such good editing things for it, Garrett. That's awesome. But now that it seems like we're actually getting into the house, we'll save the investigation part for next week in part 2. Thank you all so much for recommending this video, because I'm having a really fun time watching it, actually. Like I said, I've never watched any of Garrett Watts' videos, but yeah, this has been fun reacting to Overnight in a Haunted Victorian Mansion. And next week we will actually get into the hauntings. Given the fact that you all know what a residual and an active haunting is, let's go through it next week together and we'll see if we can pick out the differences between the two. Alright, thanks so much for watching this video. If you guys are interested in a reading, I do have new availability for June that is open, and new hours too, to help hopefully accommodate my busy schedule and all of yours. So if you're interested in a reading, please go down to the description below and go check that out. If not, that's cool too. But until next time, thanks so much for watching, and we are your PsycKicks. Peace.